do it with passion or don't do it. My mum said, look, if you're going to fucking do something, right, the swearing's got to cut out sometimes. You've got to cut the swearing out, because I swear quite a bit. So my mum said that whatever you do, yeah, do it with passion and love, or don't do it. Yeah? So if you say, Mum, I'm going to make a cup of tea, yeah, and you go, I don't want it, I don't want the tea, go away, I don't want the tea. You get me? So we'll do this with passion. These are civic buildings. Look how beautiful that building is. You can see the sign here, but then the Whitechapel Art Gallery bought it and built an extension. And this was public libraries, you know. These were like working class kids like us, who couldn't afford books. My dad couldn't read and write. Yeah? So these were like public libraries, public spaces. We go in, yeah? The University of the Ghetto, to serve the people of Whitechapel. The ghetto, fucking ghetto. This was the ghetto. This was the shithole of like the East End of London. Now it's full of posh people and camera people like you. I'm gonna slag you off and all, yeah. And this bookshop, no one knows about it. And I've lived my life in this bookshop, yeah. The Nazis firebombed it. Look at all these pioneers, look. Pioneers, you know? Leo Tolstoy, Lewis Mike, he was one of my main heroes. Colin Ward was a wonderful writer. Colin Ward was wonderful, like anarchist writer, you know? Wonderful. About anarchist building, about living architecture, about people and living in a life which was like full of love and didn't judge anyone. Bless you, bless you. How are you?
All right, yeah.
Cool. This book changed my life. It's about running schools in an anarchistic way.
You've written your own book, haven't you?
I have.
Do you mind telling us a little bit about that one?
It's a love story for my father. It's called A Modest Living, and it's Memoirs of a Cockney Sikh. Because I'm a practicing Sikh, my father was. My father came here and he couldn't get a job, so he had to take his turban off and his beard and shave it off. And then from that day, my father said, my Sikhism is within me. And then he came down and got a job like that. But he had this faith, you know, which was very important to him, and he instilled that in me. And that Sikhism is stayed with me forever. And it's beautiful because it transcends you out. It's not yoga textbook.
I mean, it's such a beautiful way of trying to turn something around that, like, it's just people not understanding your culture, or like the fact that somebody would even try to change the way that you look and the customs and traditions that you have.
Well, at that time you came, it was very, very difficult. You know, it wasn't in 1949, the British were very bitter. They'd left India. You know, this is a colonial, imperialistic country. Most of their impact and most of their money is made from raping other countries. It's the reality. But my father came out of poverty. He had this dutifulness, you know, which was very, very beautiful. And then he also had this beautiful idea that when you walk the streets of East London, you dress like a Britisher. You dress very, very smart. You know, and then people would go, oh look, that's it there, you know what I mean? And Cockney accent, he's dressed all right, you know. That was his mechanism of fighting racism, yeah? So you weren't easy, you know. I used to get my head kicked in by the skinheads. The National Front had their headquarters in Shoreditch, Hacky bashing. And they used to say to me, oh Singer, you look fucking sick, bro. Yeah? And then they go, oh, you stink of curry, Singing. But they would say, oh, you're all right because you got a Cockney accent. They were packy bashing. The skinheads were packy bashing us. Let's see that packy on the floor with his nose bleeding. And this is where I got my head kicked in by the National Front. It was a fucking shit. Oh, the National Front beat people up here. They were like neo-Nazis, you know? Petrol bombing our houses. There were no fucking coffee shops. It's fucking like... It's just mad, isn't it? How fucking stupid is that though?
Did you have some kind of like disagreement or disapproval from like the Sikh community with kind of like the way that your father was trying to
my father
bring
said
you
just
up?
go away. He goes, I don't want to know you. Let me do what I'm going to do. Yeah? Because he lived by the Guru Granth Sahib. And people don't. They just label, I mean, I'm sure Jesus didn't live in the Vatican, bro. Do you get me? The Vatican's sick, bro. You know what I'm saying? They told me to read John Paul Sartre. I said, who's he like? He said he's an existentialist. I go, oh. And my art teacher said, paint like Matisse. I said, I don't fucking paint like Matisse. I want to do like punk graphics, you know what I mean? I rip things up and join them all up and stuff. So what a beautiful upbringing. And my father loved it all. He didn't want me to be a stereotypical Sikh. He didn't want me to be a stereotypical person. He just wanted me to find my way. He didn't want another like Joginder Singh. He didn't want another one of him. He just find your way. He preferred that I got a pair of football boots and I painted a Union Jack on them instead of like looking boring like people going for Marks and Spencers, because he knew how they were manufactured. It's very important what you wear. My wife makes these ties, so we're happily married for 38 years. Yeah? And these are the girls' curtains, the dresses, everything that was left over for a period of time, she's installed into these jeans. Everything. Like that's my son's curtains, that's my daughter's dress. So all bits in these pair of jeans. I said, like when I die, yeah, archive them. And the most absurd thing about this, you're going to go to, when my father came to Brick Lane, there were no Gurdwara, no Sikh Gurdwara. So he sent us to church. Now we're going to go to that church. He sent me to.
Yeah.
What a great place, eh?
It looks so good. It was like the silhouette of you at the end of this tunnel.
Seriously, you look so cool.
Blessings, man. The crew blessings. What did that guy want?
On your Instagram.
Ah.
There's a lot changed with the streets and stuff there.
Yeah, I mean, there was no graffiti. Like, it was considered like dirty. Like, I fucking hate graffiti. I hate it. Do you know what I mean? Because like, I'm an architect, right? I love to see the brick and the patterns of the brick, and there was so many different patterns, and people fucking put graffiti on it, but you can still see the bricks there. But you know, when the community goes, when people go, when you rip the soul out, the community goes. My father said this land is cursed. Because it brewed beer and it made people's life a misery. These men would come out drunk, they'd fucking beat their missus up. The brewery people would pay them just in time so they'd piss all their money up on Friday. What's all that fucking about, It's funny, This is emotional. My mum used to walk me here, hold my hand, and I used to cry, and my mum took me to India when I was 5 years old for a year and a half. And I came back and I had to go to this school. This is my primary school. Here, look. People go, oh, like, wow, that's so amazing. You actually went to primary school from the age of like 6 to 11 on Brick Lane. How fashionable. There was a Church of England primary school. More fashion, we're fucking shit, old Bob. Brick Lane is cursed, it's finished. I hate it. Look, that represents what Brick Lane has done. When I was a child, there was a little fish here,
and you'd press that, and water would come out, and you'd drink it. It was a water fountain for the kids. Look at it now. Yeah, so none of this was here. This was all clean, like this was the pub. Yeah? And it was the strippers' pub. And my mum used to make sandwiches for the strippers. My mum said, these are people. They're human beings. You know, there's a lesson to be learned, you know? You know?
So what are the customs and traditions that you do keep in your Sikhism? The beard, the comb.
Meditation.
Meditation, you meditate?
All the time. My father said you can meditate anywhere. It isn't like, okay, at 2 o'clock, right, sorry, cut cameras, we're going to go meditate. It doesn't work like that. And then you've got to be in a way that you can elevate yourself out. My father used to be able to close his eyes and elevate himself out of the world. And my father would come and he sent us to this church. It's amazing, isn't it? From like the yogics, from the Gurdwaras. This place was a place of down and outs, people sleeping on the floor. You know, it was a place that, you know, was infested with like rats, with people sleeping, you know. And look at this church, it's a masterpiece.
What's the significance of this place for you?
I think I came here as a kid, you know. My father made best friends with the vicar. So they fell in love. So he said, oh, you're a better Sikh than me. And he said, you're a better Christian than me. And they spent all their time serving the poor. Came here. This is the edge of the city. This here is Aldgate, and that's the city. That's the city of London. That's where it all happened. That's like the band. It's very significant. There's a river that runs underneath here to the Thames. You know, this place was infested. There was, you know, there was a plague. You know, people were dying of like smallpox.
Why did your parents choose Shoreditch?
Why? Because that market was a fruit and veg market, and things would fall off the lorries and everything. My dad used to pick them up. You could get free food, and then the wood you could get, and you could burn fires. So this place wasn't trendy. You know, it's very hard to imagine, but I know what it was like. You know, it's like if you look at the archives, this place was a shithole. And then the music scene was great, you know, in the 70s. My dad let me do that. My dad let me be a punk.
Because you were in a band, weren't you?
Yeah, punk band, yeah.
How did that happen?
Well, like, I kind of, you know, when you're 15, 16, you could buy a drum kit anywhere. So I bought a drum kit. My dad let me buy a drum kit. You know? And then, like, people were rehearsing in squats in the 70s, you know? I was just making fucking music. It wasn't like mummy and daddy bought me a drum kit. I saved up 25 quid and I got a Rogers drum kit. I just a fucking bash it. You know what I mean? But originally, my father, we were brought up on like music, like the classical flute, you know, tabla, you know, all the beautiful, like, beautiful music, like the rags. And there were free concerts. And then you go to the Gurdwara and people were playing the tabla and the harmonia. And I was playing the flute, but come 15, I thought this is fucking boring. And then the story goes that the Banshees were going to go on tour with The Cure. and they needed another band to back them up. So this bloke had heard me like banging away at the drums. He said, "Oh, Suresh, do you want to go on tour with Siouxsie and the Banshees and The Cure?" And then I asked my dad, and he said, "You got a drum kit, go."
I went to the beach, we were tossed about in the storm of the morning, so deep within doubt. Saw in a dream, in a memory of mine, was it you, was it me, who was in all the time? God for me.
But he said, "Don't lose your dharam." And that meant like, don't lose your Sikhism within. My father had this beauty, and we're standing outside of Rough Trade, of music can break boundaries, you know? And then like in the 70s, two sevens clash, that the Rustas thought that Haile Selassie was coming, dub music, reggae music, sick, love. I loved it. We made like sound systems, you get me, like speakers. We'd get the speakers and face them to the wall. And so the beat would go boom, 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 you know? And like them were my black mates, you know, like Jamaican mates, and like, you know, I was Asian and no one mattered, you know? And that dub music and the reggae music was just so beautiful. And no one gave a shit. You know? People go, "Oh, like, what was it like you being like brown and as a drummer?" Because one, like, you're fucking sitting behind a drum kit. And people can't see you much. But secondly, you go, "Fuck you, bro." You get me? And I think that Sikhism in me, my father said, be fearless. Don't be careless, but be fearless. So you don't fear nothing. I fear nothing. I've been walking the streets of East London all my life. Like, I've lived this life all my life. I ain't suddenly found, like, you know, it's like, and you have to, it's not easy, you know. This was a dark and dingy place, you know, and this is where I got my head kicked in by the National Front, you know, they were like neo-Nazis, you know. My mum, I had a top bop, you know, I had hair down to my knees, you know, and then I had to, because I knew that I was going to start going to secondary school up the top of the road there. I thought that was going to really cause trouble, because it was going to give more bullying. You got that top on your head, you know? See, my mum put a hanky on it. But the lovely thing now is, there's a mural there now with my picture on it, with that top. And who's put that there? My mum has. And so I took that off. So I cut it off. And it's like my father when earlier, yeah, like he had to take his, you know. And my father did it. And they said, I could still see the tears in my father's eyes, you know. Because it probably reminded him of like when he did it, for him. They say, "Is it your Instagram account?" I said, "No, it's my dad's." My father always wanted to look different. It's what my father would have wanted.